A warm welcome from Amsterdam, and thanks for tuning in to a new episode of Game Consultant. Your host of today is Reinout.
It is July the 5th. Welcome to Game Consultant. Hey, good news. We're on the half of 220, so just bear with me another 6 months and we're entering a new year. For some, that will be quite a good message. For others, they think like, hey, I'm actually doing solid. Interesting enough, my friend Joachim is having a midsummer. Chris Reed with Reed Thinks on esports. He's doing something on Valorant. He's doing very like, oh, Ryan, give me some more time. So, Chris, interesting. But as I said to you guys, I was actually talking to a friend of mine, and his name is Paul. And a week ago, he basically said that his computer burned down. I don't believe it. I think he basically was enjoying the weekend with his wife and kid, and good for you. I mean, strange times in the US, but Paul and I actually go way back, and he's seeing so many things in the industry, and I basically did ask him, hey, the news. There's so much news. What is relevant? What is interesting? Share me your takes on it. And he said, well, how should I do that? And I said, well, come on, dude. You're Paul. Just do it. And he sent me an item. Yeah, only 14 minutes. I mean, why not? Thanks, Paul. But it was basically an intro, and it was his take. So I did have to cut it a bit, but it's fun. I actually can have it all. So I will do that. So after this, quickly, his introduction. And then I have an interview. And the interview, or better said, I have a talk with Darcy Lorincz of Torque Esports. And Torque Esports is a very interesting company with many aspects, how they look at esports and sports in general and media. And then obviously things have to be accountable. I mean, return on investment when you spend budget, advertising budget, how many viewers do you have? It's, interesting. And so Torque Esports did acquire Winview and Frankly recently. And so they're now part or under the umbrella of Engine Media. And so Torque is still listed on the Toronto exchange. And anytime soon, they will be moving to the NASDAQ. And so that's the following company now that is going to the NASDAQ. It's interesting to follow this and also to keep an eye on their vision and road mapping. So we have a very interesting interview. It's maybe a bit long, but I hope you take the time, even if you do it in 2 or 3 parts, because it tells you a lot about the focus that these companies have, and and the amazing journey that they're going through and where they're heading for. So let's start with Paul Thint and his introduction, followed by the first part of the interview of Darcy of Torque Esports, and then obviously at the end I will talk to you again. And I wonder what you think. Let's do this.
Hello, everyone. It's Paul Thint here, coming to you from sunny California. Reinout asked me for my take on this week's games industry news. I'm not sure how the segment will go, so I'll start with a quick intro about myself, and then I'll get into what I found interesting this week. So just a quick intro about me. I was born and raised in England. Love affair with games started really early in the 80s with, Bibsy Micro and Chucky Egg. Started learning how to code on that system back there, very rudimentary. And then got into music as well. So music and games kind of became a big part of my life. Lemmy from Motorhead was a big inspiration. Started learning the bass guitar. Moved to the States end 80s, and in early 90s, while going to college, started a record label. So the label really took off. Kept me busy for about 10 years. Shipping vinyl and compact discs to stores all over the world, really. And the music industry started changing towards the late 90s and early 2000s, and then I transitioned where I took a role at a company called Sulaki, which was a Finnish company that owned a pretty cool virtual world called Hubba Hotel. Just all the alumni from that company ended up moving to some of the more interesting Finnish mobile games companies of today. CEO Timo Soininen moved on to Small Giant, where he's the CEO, and that's a Zynga company now. EVP Samu Huftanen moved on to quite a few other companies, and then Next Games, where he's the CEO. They're doing some interesting stuff in location-based gaming and AR. It was just a plethora of alumni that ended up moving to some really interesting tech and mobile companies in the Finnish ecosystem, Supercell, Rovio, etc. So it was a good learning on the free-to-play model and microtransaction sales. Leveraged that learning into becoming the CEO of a company called Outspark early on. Worked with some pretty interesting folks like Ken Go, who is now the CEO of Deca Games, and is kind of really leveraging his live ops experience to create a great business there. And then other folks like Andrew Shepard that went on to Kabam and Gree, and then Owen Mahoney was actually the CEO for a while, and now is over at Nexon. So it was a great ecosystem. Ended up parlaying that into a consulting company, and which is called Trigger Spot, and that's been kind of running to this day. Have just worked with quite a few companies over the years, like Congregate and 20th Century Fox, and did some Zynga stuff, and quite a lot of others. Invested in some companies too. So as a consultant, kind of got to see the landscape from many different angles and help companies with everything from live operations to fundraising to go-to-market strategy to just connecting the dots, with the network, licensing IP, and doing a few things like that. Currently, I'm working with a company called Erdetto out of the Netherlands in the cyber kind of security space. That's a space I haven't been in on the game side, but it's pretty fascinating as far as hackers go and kind of what lengths they'll go to circumvent payment systems and things like that. So really kind of just have learned a lot about mobile and PC publishing and also in mobile ad tech, did quite a few things there. So I do advise when I have the time. Looking forward to hearing from you as things go on.
Thanks, Paul. That was a solid introduction. Next time, keep it a bit shorter, all right? But anyways, love you, and thank you very much for your introduction. And later on, we have his take on the news, gaming news. And welcome to the team, Paul. So next up, Darcy, Torque Esports, and sort of going to trade under the new name Engine Media. But I decided actually to keep it focused now on Torque Esports because I think most of you guys know this brand. And I said, if you read my blog, you can read it more in detail. Also the links to the companies that they do have under their umbrella. But as I said, it's a very interesting talk I had. And we also talked about branding. Obviously, with COVID, some brands might have been a bit shaky with how to advertise and how to reach their consumers, and also, we talked about the offline events. Will they sort of come back as it is as we had before, or are people now more like spoiled because they can sit at home and watch it? We talk about Facebook. It's losing advertisers right now. Although, having said that, the new consoles come out, so why wouldn't they advertise on Facebook? But on the other hand, there is esports and there is Torque Esports itself. So could companies like Microsoft, Xbox, and Sony PlayStation actually go to Torque and reach that audience and even maybe have a better return on the investment? His thoughts and views on that. So let's kick it off then. So esports, I was just going through some numbers and interesting. Market size by entertainment vertical. Let me start with gaming as last. So digital music, 17 billion. TV, 41 billion. Film box office, 105 billion. And on top of it, it's gaming, 116. Recently, I saw some other reports already. It's going already towards 125. So let's say it's growing fast, 200 billion anytime soon. And we're seeing lots of esports lately. Yes, today we will talk about COVID and esports. Was it an accelerator or not? I'm very happy. I have Darcy Lorincz, I say it in the English way, of Torque Esports. And the name will change soon. But today we're going to talk about esports, his organization, actually, I can say sort of his imperium. Listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange, soon making the crossover to the Nasdaq. Welcome to my episode.
Nice to be here.
Yeah.
Good morning.
So, first question. What do you think of esports today?
I think it's exciting, obviously, and being in a growth industry. The numbers you mentioned speak for themselves. It's on its way to being larger than all the other forms of entertainment, and clearly beats all of them individually, and including television, which is saying something. Although television's having its own challenges over the last several years with people leaving linear and going more towards OTT type of services. But in the end, I think that kind of encompasses all of that, and having gaming surpass that is an interesting benchmark. As an entertainment platform, it's clearly emerging in this esports category, and that's really where we see the opportunity here at Torque.
Yeah, funny enough, because I was just doing the calculation: 105 with 41. Let's say that's 150, 20 on digital music if they grow. So then you're 170. I mean, I would actually reckon that's easily what gaming will reach anytime soon. And then if you read all the news about the Spotifys of this world and a big fuss about it, and then you look at the gaming space, I mean, yeah, we're talking about Amazon, you talk about Google, but really a gaming company with how Spotify changed the world of music. If you look at gaming, there are so many candidates that are already make a change. I mean, Tencent is then maybe the comparable company when you have it, Spotify music, Tencent
Absolutely.
gaming, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, Tencent's doing very well, and they keep. I'm not sure that gaming isn't the majority of their revenue now.
No, not even. It's the fun part is it's so much wider. I mean, if you take it into parts with social media, and actually they have the what is it? They have Trovo, I think, now as the competitor of Twitch. So for everything they have something else what we have on the Western side. But anyways, that's Tencent. Hey, going through the company, I mean, you need to explain me. I mean, I'm seeing so many names. I'm seeing Eden, All In Sports, ID and Cars, Stream Hatchet, UMG. Can you give me an idea in a nutshell what you guys have? Because it has a name. The name will change, and then you have subsidiaries under it.
Yes. So the company's obviously made up of a lot of subsidiaries, and those clearly came from acquisitions over a period of years. The journey has continued. The most recent change is that we became Torque Esports last year. I joined the company earlier this year officially, and I was doing some consulting work previously. It's definitely a planned series of events in these acquisitions that becomes now Torque Esports, from being relevant in the gaming industry. Just to go in and try and layer yourself around it is not the easiest path, because the power is still in the content, as it always has been in other categories, like we talked about earlier in music and television. Power is in the publishing side of things, and we realized we needed to be in that space. And since most of our kind of DNA in the business was in this motorsports automotive lane, it was easy for us to look at publishers that had that sort of background and DNA. And Eden Games clearly had that profile. 27 years of building mobile, console, PC games, and the majority of those being in the category of driving games. Early stuff. Test Drive was the first stuff, and if anybody drove a game back in the late 90s, it probably was Test Drive, and that was the first kind of foot in the water for Eden. And since then, they built several interesting franchises, Dirt Rally, and now Gear Club is really our primary. So that's really, that it plugged in because it allowed us to become a publisher and have some control of our destiny, at least in that kind of automotive motorsports lane. As we looked at, beyond being a publisher and content, clearly we needed to do distribution. We needed a platform for that. We kind of did it backwards. Our recent acquisitions with Frankly Media included gave us an interesting footprint. Now we have an OTT platform, and we've got distribution into the world of news distribution, where most of the customers were news focused, but clearly those are companies that also produce entertainment for cable operators. They are, usual suspects that take news and put them onto the internet or on these things like podcasts that we're on today. So we have Frankly Media. That's kind of the bookends. And then between that, on the journey, we acquired business intelligence capabilities with Stream Hatchet. A leader in business intelligence in this space. It's, if you can't tell your customers or the market how their money's doing and the ROI and the data that comes around that, then it's, you're not as relevant. So we actually tell people about the data and what's happening in this industry, as well as make it happen. So it's kind of an interesting two-piece for that. And then I think the other, things that you mentioned, there's a lot of those assets like the race, WTF1, F1 starting today. So WTF1 guys are very busy. It's it's an editorial site. It's a website. It's a YouTube channel. And the race being the same. We actually, those are in the traditional motorsports, but now because of this pandemic over the last several months, they pivoted to what we do in these categories called sim racing or virtual racing, and now those properties are well known both for real racing coverage and for virtual racing. So they've really, made their name in both areas, and that helped us obviously to circle this gaming space. Then I think the other biggest one, and actually one that I'm really involved in because of my streaming background, is UMG Gaming. Where we can facilitate tournaments, matches, help brands, teams, publishers take their product to market, and create a competitive game out of a normal kind of a casual gaming platform or any of the games. So we have a really good layer of supporting services, and we produce our own games. We've had 18, almost 19 million games, tournaments, matches on this platform over the last 4.5 years. Sure. And we continue to go at a rapid pace because everybody it's great to have a game and play it, but when you actually have ladders and registration of players and compliance and anti-cheating and all the things that are in that platform, it really helps a publisher to take that game and make it into a competitive platform. So I think I mentioned the more important ones. Frankly Media. We also had a consumer-facing application called Winview, which allows players that when they're casually watching something to actually get engaged and join things, trivia contests, things about the game, and get engaged as the audience as well as players. So there's lots in that ecosystem. As we become Engine Media and move towards the NASDAQ, we're obviously integrating all these things into one business with subsidiaries, and obviously those subsidiaries have subject matter expertise and smart people from the previous companies, and we'll continue to keep those subsidiaries in their lanes so they can be special and grow. But obviously Engine Media is where they all kind of roll up to. So the funnel of all those great things, from building tournaments, having a TV experience on UMG TV, our expertise in automotive and that vertical, we call sim racing and esports, all these different properties coming together is pretty exciting. And the plan, was to kind of put them all together in this string from production to distribution to business intelligence. And now with this wrapper we're calling Engine Media, we feel we should be able to finally achieve that goal and execute as a much larger public organization.
Yeah. And why the choice then to go to the NASDAQ? Is that to raise more money?
It's just relevance. We already a public company, so we just had to decide whether we wanted to stay in a small exchange or really make our mark. So yes, much more value can be created on the NASDAQ. Your profile raises, certainly. There's a lot more investors in that, internationally and domestically. And there's other companies moving there too. There's some IPOs that have happened recently in the esports space. So we were early. I think if we weren't the first, we were the top 3 companies that ever went NASDAQ or to public first when it was back in the day on the Canadian exchange. So it's in our DNA. We're going to just continue to use the public vehicles to grow, and of course we expect to be very large now with people like Tom Rogers, founder of CNBC, and those kind of people in our board. They're driving us to much higher levels and expectations, which is great. Pulling us into this bigger world. And yes, we expect to grow. As a big contributor on the NASDAQ in this esports space.
Yeah. Can you say anything about valuation then?
No, I have to leave all that. I wish I knew as much as I could say something. Even if I could, I probably shouldn't. But you'll hear a lot from Tom. Yeah. He's definitely active out there on CNBC and other outlets. And he's definitely, listen to Tom. He'll give the guidance as appropriate.
Yeah. So esports in general, I mean, have you guys seen then an acceleration in the last couple of months? Everyone is saying COVID, maybe it came too soon, but hey, it accelerated. How was that for you guys?
Yeah, certainly we saw acceleration in some buckets, and some were just, the normal kind of trajectory. For sure, our driving games are what we call sim racing, or that, that virtual racing experience. Our DNA is long in that. So we've seen a trajectory for going on 9 years. That all started out a long time ago with Darren Cox, when he was at Nissan, creating the world's fastest gamer. And, for the first time, people saw gamers become something else. And actually some of I know we talked earlier when we were doing introductions about Formula One and, other things. Yeah. Well, some of those people that are in those race seats and on those teams came from gaming. They didn't take the normal path of, their parents taking them around the country in a go-kart or figuring out how to, raise enough money to go through the normal process. They started in gaming, and that gaming heritage and that stuff in the we'll call it the automotive vertical really was, how we saw this, the growth, and we followed a pretty natural path, and it kind of, it obviously paralleled the esports growth. But it started at competitive gaming, because I really call it competitive gaming more than esports. Esports is really the tip of the spear. But what we've been doing recently with the Legends series, with the All-Star series, is really esports. And we're talking about true athletes from both sides of gaming and real motorsports coming together and racing. And if there's one esport that really crosses over this kind of chasm between gaming and the real world, it's this sim racing, because you're literally in a simulator doing this esport. And most people that even grow up now in the real racing world get in a simulator at some point, because that's where they train these days. They don't train in real cars and smash them $1 million cars into the sides of the the track for just for the training purposes, and it teaches them a lot of new things, cognitive learning, and all the things that happen there. So it's really interesting to see that. And then, this last 6 months, we'll call it, we did see a significant uptick because there was nothing else to watch. So we, where we normally probably would have been seeing a lot more streaming and that natural growth, we also saw ourselves on television more than we ever would have seen on primetime television, where you might have seen Premier League or NFL football or some other major sport. It was us, and some others too. So, it groundswell happened fast, and that wasn't just in the driving category. Lots of the other esports got on television. Although I could tell you that, what we did see is a lot less of the, I'll call it blood sport, it doesn't play well on television. And I think we did see some of that. That was like the realization that some of the esports should stay in its lane, in the background on Twitch or whatever. But these other sports, FIFA, NHL, what we do in racing, NBA 2K, they're all on air. And it's funny to watch a Major League Baseball game virtually or a basketball game. But, there's good, clean fun, and a lot of people came to watch it. So I think it's all built on itself. This last, I hate to say the pandemic created the opportunity, but it really did create an accelerator. What we would have normally seen in 2 years, we saw in, less than 6 months. Yeah. And we actually pivoted our entire business at UMG Gaming to build an entire network. So all that other gaming that I mentioned earlier that wasn't making its way to TV is now on UMG.tv and a whole bunch of other apps and places where we built our Frankly Media platform supported this entire reach. Like we have a Roku app now, we've got iOS and Android, Apple TV, Fire TV, you name it. And we have programming. We have 100 hours of regular, fresh programming every week, and we're continuing to build that. So we truly, we built a network in 6 months. It's unheard of. Our plan was to do that, but we would have normally probably taken nearly 2 years to get to 100 hours of regular programming on a weekly basis. Yeah.
And I was actually checking on the site where, and it was something I was actually interested in. Global esports revenue projected eclipse 1 billion this year. What are your expectations are? Is it 1 billion? Are we already high? Were those numbers? It says global esports revenues. I'm trying to get a sense. I mean, I'm hearing all kinds of numbers. On gaming, we know it's around 120 billion, but where would esports be in total, you think?
I honestly think it's bigger, and I don't think they look at all the categories that really, again, I said tip of the spear. So where's the line between what they call an esport and what they call a competitive gaming or, matches? And if you look at tournaments and matches in our world, there's a lot, there's a lot of companies in our space. UMG used to be alone, and now there's, 20 some companies doing tournaments and matches. If you put those all into this aggregate and you looked at all the prizes and money that exchanges hands across this stuff. And then if you went and actually pivoted to the real kind of place where, now you're seeing betting going on esports in Las Vegas and things, I think it's bigger. I think it's, and it'd probably be even bigger if all the LAN events were still happening right now. So my guess is, by end of next year, we should easily be at 2, and it'll be a big jump from 1 to 2, but I don't think it's a jump because they'll just start categorizing some of this other actions and activity into the proper bucket. I don't see any end to the growth. This last 6 months has created a lot more awareness. Yeah, it'll of course ebb and flow. It'll go down. People start going back and watching regular sports, but the hook's set. If you like what you saw, you're going to go try and find it somewhere. So I think there's going to be this is the residual of this time we just went through will be an additive very quickly.
Yeah, I think it's an and. It's not an if or whatever. I think people will definitely keep on watching. It's something they got in contact with because of COVID, because of time to kill, and from what I'm reading, a lot of people that, actually for the first time were watching actually enjoyed. And before that, maybe they didn't give it a shot anyways because they thought it's for kids or why it's not fun. Maybe all in all, it's what you said. It's an accelerator. So how does the future look like for you guys? I mean, you have all these different kind of subsidiaries, new name. Are you guys working on new stuff, new acquisitions, or what are the expectations?
I hope we slow down just a little bit to give ourselves a pause and time to really integrate these companies properly. And I think that's where we are right now. It's never off the table that there's, not an acquisition to consider, especially one that tucks into some of our, what we call our core products or principles. Number one is content. Creating content will never stop. Whether we're creating a new game, creating a program about a game, creating a highlights show like Rewind or any of these things we do, if we can get more product, more programming, clearly that's a good investment. And most of that we'll try and grow ourselves, but there's some great product out there. There's great content that should get syndicated and should live in our world. So we definitely will be looking at content always. The best content always usually creates great opportunities. Business intelligence, clearly a growth area. We love machine learning and AI and all the things that machines can do to make a company money, and it scales very well. So investing in more, insights and business intelligence and machine learning and AI is clearly an area for us. Potentially acquisitions in that area, but clearly, much more investment in our output so we can expand the business intelligence footprint we have. We kind of have distribution very well handled with the Frankly platform. I would say that the last kind of bucket that really is interesting to us is fan and engagement of the audience. And Winview, Winview is a great start there. They've been around for a while. It's a very interesting platform. The engagement level is very high for the audience, and you and I know the audience is the players, and the players are the audience in this space. Which is very interesting, and much more than other sports. Where if you're in esports or you're a competitive gamer or just casual, there's probably some little thing in the back of your mind that says I can beat that person and be the best in that space, right? And not so much when you're watching Max Verstappen on an F1 track. You're not going to be at Max tomorrow, if ever, and or watching your favorite Dutch football player, and thinking you're going to be on the pitch next week or in the in some way. You got to spend a lot of time, and very few make it. And in this esports space, it's kind of every young person and old person that plays these games in their mind thinks that they can beat that person. And that's the interesting thing about this space. And the audience is the player. So they really, giving them some engagement is really the important thing here. Letting them feel like, they have something to say while they're watching, as well as playing. And I'm not talking about the chatty stuff that happens on Twitch. I mean, that's annoying. And their voice, in there for me, there's really no voice. I mean, it goes by so fast, and a lot of it isn't really relevant chat that you'd want to, amplify as a brand anyway. But in terms of this audience engagement, I'm talking about true engagement. Here's a series of questions asking you what you think the outcome of this event is going to be. And if you answer enough of them correctly, you too can be on the show or play, these types of tools. So I think we're going to put a lot of time into the engagement side of things. And that I could see, potentially there's some acquisitions there, although there's, not a lot of great companies, in my opinion, in that space. A lot of them are kind of stuck in the traditional sports and media place. So, we may have to build there, but look, build by partner. That's, we look at every category and continue every quarter to say, do we need to improve things? And if we do, does it mean we build it? Or do we buy it? Do we partner?
Just got an update here that Mercedes is dominating the first training sessions in the Formula One. Verstappen, he's shaky, so that's got to be something.
all the bars are going to clear out in Amsterdam now.
Yeah, yeah. Spoiler alert.
So I hope you enjoyed part 1 of Torque Esports and Darcy and his take on the company. I was talking to a friend of mine, Oliver Kern, and he said, well, I love the interviews, but sometimes it's a bit long. Maybe you should cut it in 2. And since I do like this interview and I do like the company, I want you to have the time to actually listen to the whole talk we have. So that's also the reason why I cut it in half. So this upcoming Wednesday, there is part 2. and which I hope you will actually tune in again and listen to it. Lots of learningful insights. So next, Paul did his intro, and now he will give us his take on the news, the game news of this week.
So this week, some interesting news items that I wanted to cover. So Google in the news more than once. But yeah, interesting article from June 30th with Ryan Cassidy, the product manager for the Google Maps platform. Google makes its Maps platform gaming solution available for all developers. So yeah, it seems as though they're going to be giving away the API via Unity and have really opened up that platform, because it did launch about 15 years ago. But there's been a string of innovations that, Google saying they never would have imagined, which is, when game developers get a hold of a new tech, it's always really exciting. So, that's really, really interesting for location-based gaming, because there's great games like Jurassic World Alive, Dragon Quest Walk, obviously next game's Walking Dead. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens post-COVID, with location-based gaming. Some are adjusting the solutions inside the game so that you can play kind of on your couch, but seems like we're kind of scratching the surface here in terms of, real-world games that can be built and kind of AR as well. Been following AR trends, looking like the next 4 or 5 years will be the most exciting. As far as, all the companies that are looking into glasses, also saw number of patents filed by, a lot of OEMs, and all the usual suspects are really, really crazy in 2019, 2020. There's just been a big jump in patents for those things. So, it'll be interesting to see how both of those can enhance gaming, as Pokemon Go did, obviously, and just seems to be a lot of creativity and untapped potential out there. And then if Google's providing these tools for free, then developers can really benefit and start making really interesting game experiences. So, yeah, cool. We'll keep an eye on that, see how that pertains to AR-based gaming, but with a mobile phone in everybody's pocket and phones getting smarter, it's sky's the limit. Moving on, you can probably hear the 4th of July fireworks in the background. It's quite noisy there, so you'll probably hear that as I'm recording. But we'll try to get through it as best as we can together. Interesting article in Games Industry Biz about Amazon and Google being in games for the wrong reason. Amazon Crucible, they're saying, or Rob, the contributing editors, saying that, it won't be the last embarrassment if tech companies don't stop viewing games as a means to drive cloud service revenue, right? So an interesting one, because Business Insider actually kind of took that theme as well in an article this week. And that was kind of 4 times the major tech companies from Apple to Google to Amazon tried and failed to break into video games. Be interesting to hear your opinions on this, because certainly it just seems as though, there's several major multi-million-dollar flops from these companies trying and failing to kind of break into the business. Obviously, the infrastructure plays there, and in some form or fashion they'll always be involved. But you can go back as far as Game Center in 2010. With Apple, and then kind of see what challenges that they faced, and that's kind of what this Business Insider article kind of takes the stance on. So that's really kind of putting it into did you know that questions, so like, did you know that Amazon, the biggest company in the world, launched a big budget new game this year, and that game is Crucible, and if you're hearing about it for the first time, you're forgiven because despite being free to play and available on the world's largest gaming platform, Steam, it's already come and gone from the top 100 charts. So it said that it had like 25,000 concurrent players by peak, as of May 21 after it launched. And then 2 days after launch, it kind of already disappeared from Steam's top 100, right? Which are the list of most played games on Steam. And that bottoms out around 5,000 concurrent players. So just a month after launch, they've pulled the game from Steam and it'll be in closed beta. Goes on to say Crucible was in development for over 5 years and assuredly cost tens of millions of dollars to develop. But yeah, hopefully they got some learnings from that. Then they go on to talk about Google Stadia. That's an interesting one. I mean, you get, depending on who you talk to, there's a lot of opinions around that. Obviously 5G is being rolled out, and cloud gaming and streaming, Netflix stream type gaming, goes hot and cold, it seems, over the past, year. But I think, it's just a matter of devices, technologies, platform. They're obviously saying Google's not giving up just yet. They continue to make big hires and acquisitions for the gaming initiative. So, as long as I think developers can create for the platforms with the technology, I think it's, good all around. But we'll see. I mean, not sure what will happen and if they really need to make games themselves or just provide developers the tools and tool sets in order to make just, excellent gaming experiences. So, interesting to hear what everybody thinks about that too. And then the other article I really liked this week was from our very good friend Dean Takahashi over at VentureBeat GameSpeed. Always nice to read his writing. Just saying that we're, kind of in the middle of the year, July 3rd, 2020, and he was just talking about it kind of gives us hope that the next 6 months can be better. Just also what's been going on with politics and the pandemic, and then the tragic death of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter movement and Me Too movements coming to the forefront, which is really good for America in general and gaming, being that things are being exposed and people are taking a stand, and there's being firings and misconduct that seems to be rampant in certain parts of the industry, and obviously we can't predict the full kind of impact of these allegations, but that's kind of how Dean framed the article, and then just talked about some of the games that came out, Call of Duty Warzone and Animal Crossing, and then goes on to talk about Amazon Studios, ironically, with their new game that comes out August 25th. So in addition, there's the Sony PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and lots of games coming out that'll hit those consoles. So it's a lot to be excited about. What are you excited about? That's kind of what we should talk about, and I'd love to address that in the next segment. It seems as though kind of, there's just going to be a lot of changes. And also, he talks about events and how they've gone online, GDC, Gamescom, DevCom. Obviously, he says they aren't a substitute for meeting in person, but, the next best thing. And it's interesting to hear how that's changing everything. I mean, I've been busier than I've ever been. And I think, we're hearing some tech burnout stories. We're hearing people just kind of, working and the lines are really blurred between home life, family life, and work. But it seems as though there's, games coming out and productivity's happening and new titles are being released. So, good article there. Always enjoy Dean's take. And looks like we'll have, some good games and content coming out in the August, September, October timeframe. So, look forward to that. So, game-wise, as we go into the July 4th weekend here, I was keeping my eye on a studio that I like a lot, Traplight Studio from Tampere, Finland. The guys there, Riku, Sami, and the team have released their Battle Legion game. I think it's on iOS now. It should be out on Android July 10th, I think. But yeah, interesting team, one to watch. It's kind of like a mass battle multiplayer spectator game. And I've been playing it, and it's really fun. Really easy tutorial, gets you right involved, and you can play battles with your army against others. So I think their last game got 2016, best of the year from Apple, and by all indications, it looks like this one's going to be interesting as well. So congrats to those guys. And yeah, I'll be playing that over the weekend, and love to hear from you. So connect on LinkedIn, Paul Thind, Paul Thind. Email paul.thind@gmail.com, or Twitter at Paul Thind. Thanks, Ryan out, and I'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks, Paul. And as said, welcome to the team. Love the item, and if everyone has questions or wants to get in contact, just look at the description. I have a link to Paul, his LinkedIn, and from there on, you can find everything you need to get in touch with him. Actually, it's fun. That saves me some time going through the news. That's a joke. Anyways, Paul, thank you. Chris is up next week with an item about Valorant. Lots of things can be said about Valorant, so I'm sure he will do that. And I have some interesting interviews planned. No, I'm not going to tell anything about it, but it's intriguing. I'll leave it with that. So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Darcy of Torque Esports, or better said, Engine Media. Keep an eye on them. And as said, this Wednesday, there is the second part of the interview. I also hope you liked Paul. Paul will do every week now his take on gaming. Trust me, I will have a chat with him and let it be a little bit shorter. But then again, a solid take I like a lot. So quality, and I think he has a good experience in gaming, a large network, and we were talking about that the other day. We like digital. We like the fact that we can do everything via Zoom because we know a lot of people, and that's the reason of this podcast. We want to share, and we do want to care. So hope you enjoyed it, and as always, ciao for now.
This was all for today. Thanks so much for listening to Game Consultant. Tune in next week for a brand new episode. And remember, do share this podcast with other members of the games industry.